everybody. This is Caitlin Saposi-Belknap, Move to Amend's National Director. Welcome to the June 2020 live report. I'm speaking to you today from Santa Fe, New Mexico, where I grew up and where I am at the moment and indefinitely. I'm looking forward to talking to you tonight. We have a great show. I'm going to have a special guest. One of my colleagues will be joining us, and we're excited to talk to you. You can always find us here on the last Wednesday of every month at 5 o'clock Pacific on Facebook Live and Twitter. And I think we're on YouTube too now. So if you don't use social media or don't like to use social media, now you don't have to, and you can still tune in. Move to Amend is the campaign to pass the We the People Amendment to the U.S. Constitution to make clear that corporations don't have constitutional rights and to get big money out of politics. Oops, let me turn that off. Today, we have many exciting news and updates, so stay put, don't go anywhere. But please do share this live stream using the hashtag #MoveToAmend and hashtag #LiveToReport for a chance to win a free t-shirt at the end of the report. We always give out prizes, and this month we're doing our t-shirts again. So at the end of the show, you can win by being one of the people who helps share this feed. So on Facebook, just click the little share button and use the hashtag #MoveToAmend. Invite your friends to come. On Twitter, you can retweet this live feed with the hashtag #MoveToAmend, and we'll pick one winner from each of those platforms and share 2 t-shirts. So go ahead and do that now. Also feel free at any point, you can ask me questions. I'll answer them at the end, but even if you're not tuning in live, you can ask questions. Just put them in the comments, and we'll make sure to get to all of those. And if we're not live, then we'll answer as soon as we can. So first up is our corporate rule news. Okay, it's day, I don't even know, of the pandemic, and many corporations in America seem antsy to reopen. We're seeing a lot of that, go back to business as usual, but the pandemic isn't over at all. Cases are on the rise in many states, including Arizona, Texas, North Carolina, and California. And these numbers all reflect infections that likely began way before the protests. They're actually saying that it looks like because so many people were wearing their masks during the protests and trying to engage in safe behavior, that's not the reason of the rise at all. So that's really encouraging. But because so many states are opening up, and then also so many states didn't really close down all the way, and a lot of people are refusing to wear masks and belief in this pandemic, we're seeing a big slide backwards. California, the state where I live, normally had more cases than ever before yesterday, even with all of the shutdown and the hard lockdown that happened for months of March and April. So who knows what's going to happen next, but do know that our government is not taking care of us on this one at all. Congress continues to drag their feet, act as if they're not really going to do anything. We'll see if they introduce another measure. We'll see what happens when unemployment runs out. It's really scary what's happening, and we absolutely have to take it to them and make sure that they know that it is unacceptable that they're just leaving us out. Of course, the major news since our last live report during this month and the end of May is the uprisings that have been happening all over the country and all over the planet in support for Black Lives Matter and the movement for Black lives. Of course, in response to the brutal murder on camera of George Floyd in Minneapolis. We at Move to Amend have made clear that we're 100% in solidarity with this Black-led and multiracial uprising, and we give our full-throated support to their demands. And I wanted to bring in one of my coworkers, Keon Bliss, who is in Sacramento. Hey, Keon. And I haven't been able to be there. I've been here in Santa Fe, which is relatively quiet in a lot of ways, really low on the coronavirus cases, and also just kind of more quiet on the protests, although there have been a number of protests that were pretty large here for Santa Fe, led by young people in high school. I'm not able to go to those because I'm here to help support my family, who and my mother in particular, who absolutely cannot get coronavirus. So I've been paying close attention to what's happening at home, though, and Keon has been on the front lines in Sacramento, one of the communities that has been turning out because there's an ongoing fight against police brutality and complete lack of action on the part of the city council. So I thought it'd just be good to bring Keon on here and to talk about what's been going down on the ground. So maybe we could start with that, and then there's some stuff we want to share in terms of why Move to Amend is connected. But and hopefully people are aware at this point, but just in case anybody isn't, there's been this whole debate and discourse about defunding the police and whether that is, what does that mean? And is that too radical? Is that too extreme? And obviously the people who have been dealing with the police are the ones who are saying this is what's needed. So let's talk about that first, Keon. What does defund the police mean, and how does that relate to the work that you've been doing in Sacramento?
Sure. So many people have been talking about, we need to defund the police, and the slogan has launched a huge debate as into exactly what that means. Some people, myself included, certainly do ultimately want abolition of the police, but the word defund does not imply either all or some. We can understand the concept of defunding by looking at the success of the movements to defund our commons over the past few decades, particularly schools, healthcare, housing, as well as the other aspects of the social safety net that continue to see cuts, including here in Sacramento, even as the U.S. collectively spends more than $100 billion every year on law enforcement activities, which translates into over $1 trillion over the past decade. Sacramento is definitely one of those. And we can understand the clarity of the call to reduce funding by the quick responses from cities like Los Angeles, Dallas, Minneapolis, and Boston to start reallocating police funding back into communities. We can also see the example of Minneapolis choosing to dismantle their police department and replacing it with a community-based model, and that is, replacing it with something new. This movement is for community sovereignty and control over our resources, and to really change the priorities of our elected leadership, of our government and our communities as a whole. This movement is against an oppressive, unaccountable white supremacist system that protects property and profit above people, their well-being, and our communities as a whole. So here in Sacramento, what that's looked like is just as an example, Sacramento County's budget that is multi-billion dollars worth. The Sacramento County Sheriff's actually comprises more than 40% of the budget going just to them, and they account for almost $300 million every year from the budget, from our net cost of that budget. And Sacramento City is our local police department here accounts for the third largest expenditure of our city budget even. So this is just one example, one picture from a community across in the United States, and it goes even larger with other parts of the country. But the overarching goal is we're not talking just about defunding the police. We're talking about reinvesting from budgets and putting them back into community brought in or having to interact with law enforcement and being brought into the criminal justice system as a whole.
Totally makes sense. And I think it is a testament to the really awesome organizing and education that when this, hashtag initially surfaced as the demand, and at first, especially white, more comfortable folks were kind of confused. That seemed extreme. And there's just so much work that has been done in these last weeks to make clear, one, how bloated police budgets are, which a lot of people do not understand and do not realize that such a portion of our local taxes, huge amounts, go to our police. How much military equipment they have, now that people have been able to see that with their own eyes, that is a little bit more clear, although there's still people who refuse to believe what they see. And then, linking it back to the fact that our communities are starved of other resources. And so therefore we have police filling in all these areas that they're absolutely terribly equipped to handle, like, social service calls, or, dealing with people who are having mental illness incidents and episodes that, generally police escalate. People who have mental illness are much more likely to be killed by the police. And so it's just so awesome, even though it is also incredibly frustrating and sad that this is having happened, but it's also so awesome that our country has moved forward in this conversation, in leaps and bounds. And I think in a lot of ways we can thank the pandemic for that, and just kind of the different state of mind that we were all in response to seeing the murder of George Floyd, which on one hand was horrific, of course, but on the other hand is actually, incredibly normal. But the fact that people didn't respond in the normal way is awesome. And the reason why Move to Amend supports this uprising is that the move in our name denotes our deep commitment to movement building and solidarity as a strategy for deep and lasting systemic change. And so fighting against corporate rule means that we're fighting for democracy. And there's nothing more democratic than a massive uprising pushing back against oppressive institutions. We deeply respect the power of this movement, for it has accomplished more in the last few weeks than most of us have seen in our lifetime in terms of this discussion, and also seeing tangible results. And of course, we're also seeing pushes to co-opt it and, neutralize it. But so far, those aren't getting as much traction as the push forward. And respecting the power of this movement means respecting the demands and doing the work to push back against the censorship and watering down of the messaging. Believing in community sovereignty means we believe the communities when they say what they need. And we also know that policing is an extension of corporate rule. The origins of police go back to the runaway slave patrol. Since Black people were considered property of the owning class, their job, the police's job, was to protect that property, which meant to capture people who were fighting for their liberation and successful oftentimes at getting liberated. And with the abolition of chattel slavery, we now see this relationship in the form of criminalizing and warehousing human beings, disproportionately Black and brown people, for cheap labor, and the corporate support of heavy policing and funding of tough on crime politicians. And beyond the property rights versus human rights lens, there's also a money and politics relation too. Police unions have an incredible amount of political power. This is why you'll find many of the district attorneys and mayors and city council members who refuse to prosecute or condemn egregious abuses of power by police were very likely to be propelled into power by large political contributions from police unions. Sacramento's district attorney, no exception there, right? And these unions have also successfully bargained their way into having almost no consequences for the behavior of police officers. In other words, communities, cities, and towns foot the bill for their crimes. And we pay the settlements while they get suspended with pay and then are eligible to work in the next town if they're even fired, which rarely happens. I don't know if you want to speak again to like the case study example of Sacramento and how all this is played out there.
Certainly. So here in Sacramento, I mean, it's been police have enjoyed a outsized influence here among our city and county leadership. One of our elected county sheriff, Scott Jones, has not only been in power for almost a decade under the sheriff's department, but he is oftentimes regarded our elected county leadership, our board of supervisors, usually with disdain, if not outright ignorance, basically just rejecting their leadership, rejecting their oversight, including even throwing out an independent inspector general after one bad report of a police killing under his watch. Not only that, but this local police law enforcement associations backed by police unions have been funding key oversight institutions, particularly our district attorney here in Sacramento, that who has received more than $500,000 in campaign donations from the law enforcement associations just based within Sacramento and California. And it goes on even into our elected leaders, including our city council members and county board supervisors as well, many of whom enjoy close relationships with them. But a lot of because of this this favoritism and powerful positions that they enjoy, they've been able to get away with a large amount of brutal incidences throughout the last few weeks. Most notably, these uprisings have been largely organic and and largely led by young people. And the response by local police departments and sheriff's departments, including the California Highway Patrol, has been overwhelmingly violent, particularly within the first week or two that these uprisings began. It was where all three agencies here in Sacramento blatantly open fire with less than lethal ordnance and tear gas rounds as soon as the sun went down, oftentimes aiming for people's heads, including and particularly aiming for non-participating legal observers as well as volunteer medics just trying to help people, getting them off the streets. I've had friends that have been hospitalized because of these instances, and this is just the tip of the iceberg of what's going on in cities across the country. And our elected leaders so far, are getting behind certain, are starting to take note of the overwhelmingly violent response from our police departments. But oftentimes these reforms that they're offering, which is not the same as an abolition, of course, but are so watered down that it wouldn't actually prevent. These reforms don't actually reduce the power of police to use violence against non-violent peaceful protesters, but it simply creates new opportunities for police to surveil, to harass us and incarcerate Black, Brown, Indigenous, poor, disabled, trans, gender oppressed, queer, migrant people, and those who just work in local street economies. Particularly one of those campaigns, that are getting steam here in Sacramento and across the country with mainstream elected officials is the 8 Can't Wait campaign that's being put out by Campaign Zero, which unfortunately, makes the claim that it would reduce police killings by as much as 72%. But these are the same programs and reforms that have already been tried and failed in cities across the country. And at worst, we believe these campaigns are not only dangerous and irresponsible, but they mislead the public, particularly a populace that is newly invigorated by the possibilities of police and prison abolition. And they don't reflect the needs that are of the most criminalized communities, particularly Black, Brown, Indigenous communities of color. So if we're going to honor the work of abolitionists who are organizing right now, we as a people really have to be conscious of not accepting these reformist attitude, like these reformist ends that erases the work of these potential works, and actually reach for a new world that is possible. Particularly, and it starts with defunding the police, which looks like, rejecting any proposed expansion of police budgets, prohibiting private public innovation schemes that profit from temporary technological fixes to systemic problems of police abuse and violence, particularly simply just adding more body cameras, and also contracts and data sharing arrangements, reducing the power of police unions who enjoy an outsized influence among our political circles and our elected leadership, demanding the highest budget cuts per year until they slash police budget to zero. That means slashing police salaries across the board, immediately firing police officers who have excessive force complaints, and cutting the funding for public relations, which can cost hundreds of thousands of dollars of police budgets and city budgets every year. But these are just the tip of the iceberg of what can be done. We need to reinvest in core programs that actually prioritize human life and well-being over just policing and incarcerating people who are a large part either lacking support for housing. Oftentimes people are being picked up and arrested and policed because they're unhoused, as well as providing more help, particularly around mental health services, whereas a lot of people that end up getting into the criminal justice, wrapped up in the criminal justice system as a whole, are oftentimes experiencing mental health crises. And there are already programs across the country that are working to provide mental health services that do not depend upon or rely upon police institutions, which already go outside of their scope.
Awesome. So we wanted to talk a little bit about, what solidarity looks like for Move to Amend. And honestly, this is developing and ongoing. It can look different from day to day, given how quickly things are changing. So keep an eye out as we'll be lifting up different campaigns and actions that our folks can plug into. We encourage you to show up on the front lines if you can, if you're able to do that safely. And as well as, material donations and financial support of the grassroots organizations that are doing this critical frontline work towards our collective liberation. And it is really important that support go as much as possible. Do your research, give it to grassroots groups. Don't give it to the large organizations that, everybody knows their name. One, they don't need the money as much. And two, sometimes those are the groups that are actually pushing for these more reformist measures that, have been proven, as Keon said, not to actually protect people's lives, body cameras, police review boards, things like that, we've now had a decade of those in response, and we've seen that it hasn't alleviated the problem at all. Police are still killing Black and brown people in horrific ways and are facing no ramifications for it. And so we need to push past that. We need to push to measures that actually will work. Some of the work that Move to Amend has been doing in an ongoing way, our movement education program, is a lot of self-education that you can also do with your friends. Our local groups do it together. And it's not just about, racism and white supremacy and white privilege. It's also about other forms of privilege and oppression, to get, sort of a basic understanding of language and analysis. And then, how to start to develop the tools to build bridges to effectively work together in a way that, can build towards a multiracial movement that is actually able to work together. Because right now we have a very segregated country and our activism is very segregated generally. Young people are doing a better job of this on the whole. But that creates divides because we come from different cultures and backgrounds and understandings, and we deal with conflict differently. We deal with, stress differently by necessity. And oftentimes those communication problems then lead to exacerbate, the differences of basically like experience about what America is what this country is about, what police are about, what government institutions are about, and how different people are treated, and assumptions that we make based on that. And then that is an impediment to our ability to work together. So in a lot of ways, that's where it starts. And it is really encouraging to see how much people are, looking for answers, looking for deeper understanding right now. And so let's definitely keep it up. This can be part of the narrative that Move to Amend and many others have been putting out ever since the pandemic started, that we don't want to go back to normal. This is a terrible tragedy in so many ways, and situation that has happened to the entire world. But how do we use it as an opportunity to take stock of what really matters and to be real about how our institutions are in the world and whether they're forces of good or not. And if they're not, let's dismantle the fuck out of them, okay? So that was kind of most of what we wanted to talk about in terms of just kind of like the front lines of the uprising. But I want to see, Keon, is there anything else that you want to add before we move on to some other corporate rule news from the month?
Yeah, I mean, just to give a quick shout out to those local groups that and emerging coalitions that are starting up in cities and states across the country. Here in Sacramento, we have an emerging coalition called Black Justice Sacramento. That's coming of several groups, Black-led, queer and trans-led groups that are coming together to actually form cohesive demands that actually represent all Black lives and the varying aspects of them, not just a select few or what our elected leaders want to represent. One of the organizations that I'm representing here in Sacramento, the Anti-Police Terror Project, is a Black-led, multiracial, intergenerational coalition that seeks to build a replicable and sustainable model that eradicates police terror in communities of color. And we also help support families surviving police terror in their fight for justice, documenting police abuses, and connecting impacted families and community members with resources, legal referrals, and opportunities for healing that actually, are the first step towards creating viable, sustainable alternatives to our current two-tiered criminal justice system that's rooted within these white supremacist policies. And another thing too, when it comes to working in solidarity, one of the things, if you're just getting involved in this movement and paying attention to what's happening, one of the best and easy things that you can be doing right now is just showing up and being present, being willing to listen, because solidarity as a whole is more than just mutual support towards a shared political goal, but it's also being willing to take a step back and accept leadership from those that are the most oppressed and living on the front lines of struggle against corporate rule that is rooted within white supremacy and depends upon the police violence in order to maintain its comfortable status on power. So whatever you're however you're looking to get involved, there's always a role to play. And for better or worse, ready or not, we're in a really revolutionary moment where we could actually see lasting systemic change. But it's going to take a multitude of people, multiple coalitions that come together and sustain themselves around a cohesive set of demands, which one of those being a general framework for that is the 8 to Abolition campaign. It's a common set of demands that starts with number 1, defunding the police, 2, demilitarizing communities, and that includes banning the use of less than lethal ordinances that are even by the United Nations standards a violation of international human rights. 3, removing police from schools. 4, freeing people from jails and prisons, starting with those that are currently incarcerated for nonviolent offenses. 5, repealing laws that criminalize basic human behaviors and acts of survival, particularly those that are living on the streets. 6, investing in community self-governance. 7, providing safe housing for everyone. And 8, investing particularly in care across the board and not police. These are just, the steps towards really getting creating a better world that prioritizes life and well-being for all human beings, and not just property and profit interests. Because that, at the end of the day, that's what the core goal of policing actually is. It's about protecting property first above all else, and not human life or serving the community.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing all that, Keon, and for all the work you're doing. So Keon's going to step off for a little bit. He's going to come back because his role at Move to Amend is our grassroots director. And so when we do the grassroots report tonight, he's going to share that. But I'm going to go on to some of our other news that we wanted to share from the month, because genuine solidarity is really what it's all about, and that's how we grow, and that's how we're going to win, especially when our mutual enemy, the mega rich and the corporations that they own, have the militarized police as their first line of defense to protect their property, and the courts and the politicians that they own as well. One recent example of how strong the corporate grip is over our own courts came out this week. A U.S. federal judge appeals court ruled on Monday that California cannot require companies like agrochemical giant Bayer, or Monsanto is the subsidiary of Bayer in question here, to include a cancer warning. So California passed a ballot initiative. So this is the Republic of California requiring companies that sell products in that state to label if they are known to cause cancer. And so not banning cancer-causing substances, which is what should be done, but just labeling them. But Monsanto sued and is making the claim that glyphosate, which is in Roundup and other weed killer products that they make, doesn't cause cancer, despite the World Health Organization's 2015 classification of the weed killer as a probable human carcinogen. According to the judge on Monday, the California requirement of a cancer warning label violates Bayer's First Amendment right to free speech and their right not to speak. So when I heard this, actually did a live broadcast yesterday, just kind of off the cuff about it. So if you want to tune in there, saw a lot of conversation in response to that case of folks assuming that it was because the judge was, a right-wing judge. Was he a Trump appointee? No, actually, he was a George Bush Sr. appointee. So yes, a Republican, but we need to understand that this is actually the precedent of the land already. And it isn't about this judge. It is the whole system and the idea that corporations have constitutional rights. So back in 2015, when the World Health Organization brought together 17 oncology experts from 11 countries to review the long suspected link between glyphosate and kidney disease in farm workers, they concluded and published that it is a probable carcinogen. But it should come as no surprise that the giant pesticide producer didn't like those findings, and thanks to its corporate constitutional rights and the deep pockets, they were able to set in motion a plan to discredit the international agency study in order to continue selling their dangerous product. Even though there are tens of thousands of cases against Monsanto from individual people who have gotten cancer as a result of using Roundup, that didn't matter to this judge, and it doesn't matter in the legal system because corporate rights and the rights of property trump the rights and protections of human beings, and that happens all the time. So their political influence has been so great that they had the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency itself alleging contrary evidence to the World Health Organization. So if you want to read more about this, there's a Common Dreams article about it. And we've also been talking about this for a while. So probably the Ninth Circuit this case is going to be appealed, and there's a good chance that this part of the case will be overturned temporarily. However, we'll see if it goes on to the Supreme Court. We already know that the Supreme Court since the 1980s has been willing to side with corporations and their right not to speak under the First Amendment, and over the need for the public to know what is in our products, and or the products that we have in our food supply, or in this case in the supply of, mostly it's farmers, who are the ones who are using this in large amount, are farm workers. It's not people who own farms, because that's corporations, but the people who are doing the work, which are incidentally, of course, most of the time, people of color. And this is another reason why it's so important that we pass the We the People Amendment to the Constitution, which is what Move to Amend's core work is, to make clear that only human beings have constitutional rights and that money is not speech. And there is, as many of you know, a debate about how far the amendment should go, whether the amendment should only address political spending and the First Amendment rights of corporations and the wealthy, to contribute money to the political process as granted by the Supreme Court. This case is a great example of why it isn't just about money in politics. It isn't just about the First Amendment right to contribute money to elections. It includes other constitutional protections as well. In this case, other aspects of the First Amendment, that this idea that corporations have a right to be silent, protected by the First Amendment, when our government, in the case of California, when the public directly is requiring them to tell us what they're putting in their products, but their rights trump ours, is why we need this amendment. And until we get the amendment passed, we will not be able to put corporations in their proper place, and we will not be able to meaningfully protect the public. So you're listening to, I'm not done with the news, but I see that some folks have joined us. So you're listening to the Move to Amend live report. Move to Amend is the campaign to pass the We the People Amendment to the U.S. Constitution to make clear that corporations don't have constitutional rights and to get big money out of politics. Reminder that we will give away a free t-shirt to a person on Facebook and a person on Twitter who retweets or shares, respectively, this broadcast and helps bring your friends in. So use the hashtag Move to Amend and hashtag live report, and we'd love to give you a chance to get a free Move to Amend t-shirt. So on other corporate news, PG&E, related to this idea that corporations have constitutional rights. When they want to buy politicians' favors and votes, corporations claim that they're a person. When they want to admit to killing real human beings, they claim that they're just a corporation and therefore nobody can or should go to jail. And in the case of this PG&E situation in California with the Paradise Fire, it wasn't just one real human being being killed. One is too many, but PG&E, Pacific Gas and Electric Company, pleaded guilty last week to killing 84 people. So right now, the question on everyone's mind is, besides when do we overtake this fascist government, why isn't PG&E getting the death penalty? If any one of us killed 84 people, that's what would have happened. But that's the whole double standard. Sometimes they're a person when the rights are in question, but when it comes to the responsibilities, never mind, we're just a corporation and then we have limited liability. So this has been going on for over 100 years. And it is not just related to money in politics. This is corporations able to dominate, run, and rig our legal system in their favor so that property rights always trump human rights. And that's why we need the We the People Amendment, House Joint Resolution 48. That is the only solution to the problem. The court must be overruled. We can't do this state by state. We can't do this at the local level. We actually have to change the Constitution. And it's been done before when things have been so wildly out of whack. And that's why we need to do it again. And let's see, there's a couple more things I want to share in terms of corporate rule. The world's largest asset manager is sparking concern from U.S. lawmakers in both parties on multiple fronts, including over its sheer size and market power. its ties to China and the role that they played at the center of the Federal Reserve's massive bailout, through which hundreds of billions of dollars in public funds went to politically powerful corporations with a history of wage suppression, inadequate leave policies, and reckless stock buybacks and speculative investments. So the real looters of America, I think as everybody listening to this knows, are Wall Street bankers, and they're the ones who are benefiting from this pandemic, not protesters in the street who certainly have not been violent. It's the police that have been violent, and even though that is obviously not what Donald Trump and some of the others in political power are trying to portray. In a recent video released by former Labor Secretary Robert Reich, he shows that while more than 10,000 people have already been arrested during the Black Lives Matter uprising, only 1% of Wall Street bankers were jailed for fraud after the 2008 financial crash, despite causing American households to lose a combined $19 trillion in wealth. Back in April, we talked to you about how many U.S. companies like Caterpillar, Levi Strauss, Stanley Black & Decker, and World Wrestling Entertainment were still being rewarded with pandemic funds, while thousands of the recently laid off workers were filing for unemployment. Who knows if they even got it? So many Americans haven't. More than half of working class America is still unemployed, unable to pay all of their bills, unable to buy food, some risking the eviction or certain death due to lack of health care. And by comparison, even today, in the midst of a global pandemic, America's billionaires have seen their wealth soar by $434 billion thanks to bailouts and tax breaks. That means that we paid that money to them. And the looting doesn't stop there. Just think of the epidemic of wage theft in America, with employers stealing a combined $15 billion in income from their workers every year, not to mention multi-billion-dollar companies not paying a single dime in federal taxes like Amazon, Netflix, Chevron, and Halliburton, and predatory payday lenders that target communities of color and trap borrowers in a cycle of never-ending poverty. All of this needs to end. So want to let you know about an action happening on July 11th, not this weekend, but next weekend. The Move to Amend folks, Move to Amend endorsed Movement for a People's Party action to call for a people's stimulus, which should have been done right away. So on Saturday, July 11th, Move to Amend is joining with Movement for a People's Party and other organizations to visit the homes of every single member of Congress and the Senate to demand that they defund the police and divert funds back to schools and social services, Medicare for all for as long as the pandemic lasts until there's a vaccination, monthly $2,000 cash payments for everyone, covering payroll to protect small business jobs, suspending rent and mortgage payments, and suspending student loan and credit card loan payments. This is what should have been done right away. This is what a number of other countries have done and continue to do as long as there's a public health threat due to the pandemic. And yet our country has done almost nothing. We got maybe $1,200. I haven't gotten my check. I don't know about you. And a bit more unemployment for those lucky enough to actually be able to receive unemployment, although half of the people who have applied haven't, or actually it's a third of the people who have applied have not been able to receive it yet still. Meanwhile, bills are stacking up. People are facing eviction. As I said earlier, families with children are not able to put food on the table, and people are being forced to go back to work in unsafe conditions. And it really shows that the United States at this point is an absolute failed state. So Move to Amend stands with Movement for a People's Party action, and we hope that you will join. And it's not enough just to go to state capitals or their offices where they're not even there. We're going to their friggin' houses. So come with us. All right, you've been listening to Move to Amend's monthly live report. I'm Caitlin Sposi-Belknap, Move to Amend's national director. Move to Amend is the campaign to pass the We the People Amendment to the U.S. Constitution to make clear that corporations don't have constitutional rights. and to get big money out of politics. Ask me your questions at any point. I'll cover them at the end. Don't forget to share the link and retweet this to help bring your friends in and win a chance and get a chance to win one of our free t-shirts. Next up is updates from the Move to Amend campaign. I'll see you in a sec. So we're still practicing shutdown because that's what we all should be doing if we can. So we're not doing normal work. We already had a virtual office, so folks are working from home. Our staff are actually financially laid off, but working as volunteers right now. Move to Amend wasn't in a position to qualify as a 501c4 for stimulus small business funds that only applied for 501c3s or for-profit businesses. So we are working on ways to connect with folks online. And we're going to start a weekly broadcast that we'll be doing every Friday. The details are still a little bit up in the air. We don't know what it's going to be called. But first up will be Jessica Munger, our program director, and George Friday, one of our founders and one of our board members she's been working on these issues for a really long time. They'll be live to connect with you all on July 3rd. I think we said noon Pacific is when we were going to do this. And again, it doesn't have a name yet. We just decided this on Monday. So it's a new project and there'll be more to come, but that will bring us closer to you all, and we'll be talking about basically what's going on in the news with everything happening so fast. Doing this monthly live report, we're going to keep doing this, but we're going to also bring it weekly and bring more voices. After that, Daniel Lee, who's one of our board members, and I will be on the following week. So feel free to make suggestions, topics that you'd like to see covered, ways that you'd like us to go about this. Let us know, and sign up on our email list if you're not already there, or stay tuned in to our social media, and we'll get you the details as soon as we have them, which will be soon because July 3rd is coming right up. We have 74 co-sponsors on the We the People Amendment. So even though this is not prime time to be advocating for systemic solutions to Congress members who are busy either pretending like they're doing something about police brutality, or maybe will be charitable and trying to do something about that or the pandemic. Nonetheless, we did bring in a new co-sponsor this month. Jerry McNerney from California, District 9, joined his House colleagues to become our 74th co-sponsor for the We the People Amendment, HJR 48 in the House. So we're just one co-sponsor away from our 2020 goal of 75 before the end of the year. So there's still plenty of time to get it done. We have been beating our self-set goal every year, and even with the pandemic setbacks, I hope we will at least do that this year. So contact your representative. Alfonso will share the list of current co-sponsors. You can see if your rep is on the list. If they are, let them know that you appreciate it. And if they're not, then let them know that they need to get their butts supporting the We the People Amendment. It's House Joint Resolution 48. You can call them tomorrow morning and tell them to co-sponsor House Joint Resolution 48. Pledge to Amend campaign. So this year is one of the most important elections in U.S. history, or at least, in our lifetimes. Probably every year everyone thinks that and says that, but then the ante just gets upped. So not only is the presidency a crucial race, and don't get me started on our terrible options there, but the U.S. Senate and a number of seats in the House, and of course local offices, are really important as well. So we think people have an important role to play. We of course need to make sure that we actually can go and vote, and we're seeing huge problems there. And so getting involved in folks working at your state level to make sure that you are able to vote by mail safely, and that those votes get counted is really important. We're working on our Pledge to Amend campaign. So we're trying to get every member who's running, everyone in the House is obviously up for re-election in an even year like this, but everybody in the Senate as well, and then local, state, offices too, to take our pledge to amend to make clear that they will use their office to support the We the People amendment, no matter what level of government they're in. So please help us contact the candidates and ask them to take the pledge to amend. We are most of the way through the primaries season now, so now we're into the general election, and this is an opportunity for every single candidate to let us know where they stand. So they can either take the pledge or they can not, and then we advertise to our supporters, you all, and the general public what their answer was in response to the question of whether they support the We the People amendment, whether they believe in corporate personhood or not, and whether they will use their office to fight for the We the People amendment and this movement. So Alfonso will share the link with you to where you can see who has taken the pledge so far, and if the candidates who are running in your district, in your community, have done it, and if not, how you can take it to them and ask them to take the pledge. I encourage you to keep an eye on our local affiliates and our email list, because they'll be the ones who will let you know as we get closer to election day where the candidate stands, so that you can take that into account as you're deciding how to vote. Want to also let everyone know that we have taken our barnstorming tours virtual. So our barnstorming tours are normally what we do in communities every year, traveling the country, educating, inspiring action, and starting Move to Amend local groups. And these events are always free and open to the public. And so we are happy to work with you and maybe a local group you already have on the ground, or if you want to get started, to set up a Move to Amend group, connecting you with other Move to Amend supporters who are not yet activated, and doing an online presentation and barnstorming stop in your community. So let us know if you're interested in hosting one of these, and we can do it via Zoom or one of the other online mechanisms, and it can be as open or closed as you want in terms of invite only, or whether you want to make it open to the public. Also stay tuned. We will be we're working on some videos, which has never been Move to Amend's strong suit, we'll say, but we're getting better in that department, and we are really excited that to have been speaking recently with Peter Coyote, who is interested in supporting Move to Amend through some video work and some stuff that we're doing in-house as well. So stay tuned for that. And also want to let you all know, I mentioned when Keon and I were speaking about our movement education program. So before we get to the end of June, we will be doing an update on that program, which will currently is kind of an internal process that all of our local chapters go through to ultimately come out with a solidarity outreach plan and some strategic thinking about how they are going to do outreach in their community and not just speak to the people that they already know or that they already work with, but actually branch out, prioritizing frontline communities, people of color, Indigenous folks, people who are already marginalized and who are facing the implications and ramifications of corporate rule being hit the hardest. And so we have heard from a number of people that has been really life-changing, honestly, opened their eyes to a lot of perspective that they didn't have before. There's a lot of awesome material that we frankly borrowed from a lot of other really good groups too, and we've compiled it together. And so we will be doing a new iteration of that meant for not just Move to Amend groups, but other organizations, local groups that want to use it, or even just a group of people who want to get together with your friends and learn about the history of how racism has divided and effectively conquered, set back many of our movements for social justice in the past, how gender inequality has also played out in dividing our movements, what has been effective, and just peeling back the layers of that onion so we can better understand how we got into the situation that we're in, so that our actions going forward are as systemic as possible and rooted in an understanding that if we don't figure out how to come together, especially across racial divides, but generational divides, gender divides as well, class divides, if we can't figure out the tools to work with each other despite our different experiences, taking into account privilege and oppression so that we're not blind to those things, we're not going to be able to build the people's movement that we need. So give us your feedback about that and stay tuned. And if you're interested in finding out more, make sure that you sign up on Move to Amend's list so that you get the emails when we have that updated. So that's the news of what's been going on. We're still kind of trying to figure out the best way to approach Congress. I do have a call with Pramila Jayapal's staff next week. She's our lead to kind of get a better sense of how we might begin to pressure Congress, especially during the August recess more, now that they're trying to return to normal. So we're going to push them to not just say, you know, oh, we're only dealing with the pandemic, because that's what they all tell us, except for they're not dealing with the pandemic at all, right? So time to move forwards on some of these systemic issues again. You are listening to Move to Amend's monthly live report. I'm Caitlin Saposi-Belknap, Move to Amend's National Director. We're the campaign to pass the We the People Amendment to the U.S. Constitution to make clear that corporations don't have constitutional rights and to get big money out of politics. You can ask me your questions anytime. Don't forget that we'll give away a t-shirt to one person on Twitter and one person on Facebook who shares this feed. So please go ahead and share it now so that your friends see that you're here and to help spread the word. We're going to be doing our dispatch from the grassroots next, and Keon will be up offering that. So I'll be back after he's done with that.
Hi there again, folks. This is Keon Bliss, the Grassroots Director for Move to Amend Coalition, and I am here to give you our monthly affiliate shout-outs. And I want to give a quick shout-out to all of our affiliates who have done well to adapt to our current conditions under pandemic of COVID-19, and have been most of whom have moved, who have adjusted from doing in-person meetings and outreach efforts and recruiting members of Congress to switching to more virtual conferencing and really adapting to use technology to better connect with each other while many of us are still under quarantine. So. With that, I want to give a few shout outs, first and foremost, to our folks in Minnesota and for the Minnesota State Network, who are hard at work securing pledge signers for Move to Amend's Pledge to Amend campaign going into the 2020 elections. And so far, they have, by our latest count, 95 pledge signers based in across the state of Minnesota. There are several state Senate races and state House races that are going on right now, including races for the U.S. House, and they've actually secured 5 House candidates who are now pledge signers committing to support the We the People Amendment. Hey there, Kendrick. And want to give a great shout out to the folks out there in Minnesota who continue to be plugging away and building their coalition through Lakes area, St. Paul, Minnesota, and those in Minneapolis who are also working in solidarity and looking to connect with the groups out there in Minneapolis who are leading the charge to transform their current system of policing and really taking part in really engaging in these ongoing uprisings for Black lives. So keep up the great work that all of y'all in Minnesota Move to Amend. Next up, I want to give a shout out to our folks in the East Bay Move to Amend, based out here in Oakland and Berkeley, California, who have been hard at work, who were instrumental in getting our latest co-sponsor, Congressman Jerry McNerney, to be our 74th co-sponsor. The East Bay folks have been hard at work, really connecting with local groups, particularly local Democratic clubs, Green Party groups, and local labor unions and labor councils and central labor councils in the East Bay area, who many of their members are become very supportive and have been instrumental in securing several of our co-sponsors, including McNerney. East Bay folks just recently completed the latest iteration of the movement education program. So really want to give a big thank you to Lawrence Abbott and Jim McFadden and everybody else that's in part of the East Bay Move to Amend affiliate for their continued dedication to Move to Amend, pushing hard on getting the We the People Amendment supported, and to continue growing our grassroots movement to amend the Constitution. So keep up the great work, y'all, out in East Bay. I also want to give a shout out to our folks in Grand Valley Move to Amend, based out in Fruita, Colorado, who are continuing to attend their local community meetings through Zoom and other venues, and representing Move to Amend at two groups and discussing how and connecting the dots between these converging crises of COVID-19, police terror and accountability, as well as our ongoing economic crisis and social crises. So great work to y'all out in Fruita, Colorado. Also want to give a shout out to our folks in Wayne County, Pennsylvania. Wayne Citizens Supporting Democracy, a local Move to Amend affiliate out there, has been hard at work with what they call a Zoom roadshow to local organizations, connecting the dots between the nature of corporate rule and the current issues that matter most within to citizens of Wayne County. Keep up the great work. They've been hard at work building up their structure, as well as they've been connecting particularly as well with their local student communities, giving out children's activity sheets and free meals with the school supplies as well. And they are active participants on Move to Amend's Interfaith Caucus, and connecting with communities of faith and ethical values to support the movement to amend the Constitution on their based on their ethical and religious beliefs. So keep up the great work, y'all, in Wayne County. Also want to give a shout out to our folks in Miami County, Ohio. We the People Miami County, an active working group that's working to become a full-fledged Move to Amend affiliate, is hard at work continuing to reach out to their Member of Congress, Warren Davidson, to support the We the People Amendment and become one of the latest Republican co-sponsors for the We the People Amendment. While the virus has, of course, affected us all in terms of getting out there and being able to meet with our Congress representatives directly, they've been hard at work trailing Congressman Davidson through the virtual town halls that he's been doing, as well as any in-person visits when they can, of course, practicing their social distancing and maintaining their health as well throughout this. So I want to give a big thanks to them for keeping up the great work, as well as to Greater Dayton Move to Amend, who has been their ardent supporters and neighbors within Ohio. And also want to give a shout out to Santa Clara County Move to Amend, who has been hard at work connecting with local community organizations out there in Santa Clara County, California. They've recently found, they're recently working on getting, they've been hard at work actually helping to lead the conversation around Peter Coyote, along with core members of California Move to Amend State Network, particularly the folks in Sonoma County Move to Amend, who have been instrumental in communicating with Peter Coyote out here. And they've also been hard at work reaching out to groups like Common Cause, the Unitarian Universalist churches in their area, as well as getting more endorsing organizations, including the South Bay Democratic Coalition, and the California Clean Money Campaign, who have all signed on recently to support the We the People Amendment. So want to give a big thank you to our folks in Santa Clara who continue to be dedicated, as well as working in solidarity with members of the Movement for Black Lives, including all their members agreeing to donate hundreds of dollars to their local NAACP chapter and Black Lives Matter as well. So thank you all so much for the solidarity support, and keep up the great work out there. And of course, we want to encourage and give thanks to all of our Move Command affiliates who continue to stay active during this time of social upheaval, as well as during this time of pandemic. One more shout out to folks in Fresno, California, who have been continuing to meet with their communities of faith through virtual conferencing, and has created a great flyer that connects the dots between, who tells the history of corporate rule from the beginning, and connecting it why we need Move to End and the We the People Amendment, and also a shout out to our folks in Pensacola, California. Pensacola, Florida, who are our Northwestern Florida Move to Amend affiliate that continues to stay active and engaging in several direct action and solidarity campaigns, as well as a drive-by show as well. Keep an eye out for that. I'll actually be doing a virtual barnstorming event with the folks in Pensacola later in July. So keep an eye out if you're in the Pensacola area or in Florida in general. Feel free to tune in when we have our event, hopefully here in late July. That's it for the affiliate shout-outs. Thank you all so much for continuing to tune in, and I will pass it off back to Caitlin to continue to wrap it up.
Oops, I'm on mute. Sorry. So what I said was, thank you so much, Keon. It was great to have somebody join me. We haven't done it like this before, so maybe this is something we'll try in the future. And then if you have any questions, now is the time to get them answered. So let us know. And if you're not listening live, if you're watching this recording, you can still put in your question in the comments, and we will answer you in the comments as soon as we can, somebody from our team. So first question, how can people help pass the We the People Amendment? Well, obviously, a lot of the work is movement building and education. So we are structured around local, what we call affiliates. That's our local chapters. So the most kind of effective ongoing way that you can help support Move to Amend and the We the People Amendment directly is to start a local affiliate to do just that. But if you're operating as an individual person, you can get started right now without having a local group by contacting your representative. So the We the People Amendment has been introduced in the House of Representatives for the last 4 Congresses. And you can contact your rep and ask them to sign on, co-sponsor House Joint Resolution 48 if they're not already on. Alfonso shared the link so that you can see if your rep is on there. I did see a question that somebody had asked about 2 reps, Custer and Papas. Neither of them have signed on as co-sponsors. So if those are folks who live near you, time to get to work, Kathleen, to bring them on. Looks like my screen is frozen, which may or may not mean that you can hear me. Okay. So that's the easiest way. And if you're only going to be able to do that, and you're not going to be able to start a local Move to Amend group, which we can help you do, we can connect you with other Move to Amend people who have signed the petition near you. So you're not doing this alone. You can certainly bring in your friends. Like I said, we can do a barnstorming event for you and your friends in your community to help you get started. You can watch our film Legalize Democracy, do that as a screening. We can help you do that online if you're still socially, if you're still not coming together with people. That gives you a good introduction to Move to Amend, and then how to get started starting a group, because that's what we really believe is what makes movements happen is, local grassroots organizing, and that's why we're structured the way that we are. But you can also call your representative just every day and let them know that they should sign on, invite your friends to do that. And we are still working to get the amendment introduced in the Senate as well. And frankly, the pandemic has been a setback in that department. We have a senator who is willing to introduce it, but he has said that he wants 5 colleagues to join him. And so that's what we're working to put together. And so calling your senators as well is really important, especially if you live in one of the target senator states. So that's California. Let's see if I can remember them off the top of my head. California, New Mexico, Montana, Hawaii, Ohio, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and I don't know, feel free to Keon and Alfonso remind me. I wasn't expecting to just rattle this off. It's been a minute since I talked about this. Oregon, Washington. If you live in any of those states, and I might be forgetting a couple others, but those are the main ones. California, Oregon, Washington, New Mexico, Hawaii, Montana, Ohio, Massachusetts, Rhode Island. The senators from those states in particular, if we're only talking about one, you know which one is the more likely to come on board. Those are our top targets, and we could use your help for sure, contacting them and asking them to co-sponsor the We the People amendment as it's introduced in the Senate. And our goal is to have that done this year. So we could really use your help. All right, next question. Resources to educate white people on the history of Black, Indigenous, people of color, looking to put on local, I think that's asking if we're going to put it on, thank you, our main website. So if you go to movetoamend.org/education, you can see the movement education program materials that we already have. We've done a few different iterations over the last, when did we put it out? I don't know, 7 years ago, maybe. And you can see all of that background and where it currently stands. And then as we create the new version that we're working on, we're actually going to put that in a new format on a new platform. So that will link on that page, and we'll obviously also put an announcement on the front page of our site, and we'll send an email out to let you know how you can do that. It's a website that allows us to share basically do it in like more of a curriculum format. So it's not just a page with a bunch of articles and questions, but something that's more interactive. So it's called the Radical Guide. You should check it out anyways. And there's a lot of awesome materials there, and we're partnering with them. One of our board members runs that website and has made this available to us to share this and make this more accessible to everyone. So I hope that you will check it out. Again, that's movetoamend.org/education for now, and that's where it will be as soon as it's updated. And our goal, and I think our timeline, we're on track to have that done before the end of the month, or by the end of the month. All right, were there any other questions, Alfonso, that I missed earlier? And last call if anybody else has any questions. If not, we'll start to transition to the end here. Don't sign off, because we will definitely leave you with our inspiring hell yeah moment. But I want to first make a pitch for, if you support the We the People amendment, if you want to end corporate personhood and make real democracy possible in this country as we've never had before, because either human beings were not able to exercise our full rights, and obviously that's still a battle that's in process for many groups of people, but either that or corporations have been able to claim rights that we the people can't even really dream of exercising, because we don't have the money that they have, right? We don't have the resources. We can't live forever. We can't be in multiple places at once. And so if you want to end corporate rule, Move to Amend is the group that you need to support. There are other groups that are working on money and politics, but frankly, none of them are taking the systemic approach that Move to Amend is taking. An amendment is what's needed, and a movement to build towards that amendment is the only way that we're going to get this done. And I know that times are really tough right now. I know that many of our supporters are out of work. I know, or worried about what the future is going to hold. But the good news is that we get this done on a grassroots budget, even though we're a national organization. And so your contribution to Move to Amend, whether it's $5, $50, $500, $5,000, I guarantee you that we will get more bang for that buck than just about any national organization out there, because we have made it happen as a non-mainstream group all of this time, because frankly we are demanding a solution that the mainstream organizations in Washington D.C. or politicians for the most part are not willing to get behind until we make them, and we have been able to make them. And so please help us keep it going. Like I said earlier, our staff are currently on layoffs. And that is meant to be temporary, and that's part of why we're all working anyways as volunteers, but also because we're really passionate about this, and we would do it whether we were making money or not. But frankly, it's a lot easier to do this work when we don't also have to juggle other jobs or look for other jobs. And so please make a donation. If you can become a monthly supporter, that's the best way to give. Even though I'm unemployed, I'm still giving $28 a month for the 28th Amendment. I hope you'll think about joining me. If 28 is too steep, then how about 10 or 5? If you can afford $50 or $100 a month, then please give that. But it's so important to continue to fund folks who are doing the systemic work to change, to revolutionize the whole system, not to just put Band-Aids on it, not to just respond to whatever the latest threat is, not to just respond to whoever is president and the policies of what's going on there, but have a long game in mind that will change the rules of the game and ultimately make all of our work more possible. If corporations didn't have constitutional rights, we would immediately be further along on protecting the environment. We would immediately be further along on demilitarizing our police. We would immediately be further along on addressing climate change. We would immediately be further along on protecting people from, harmful cancer-causing products. And the list goes on, whether it's animal rights or human rights or planet rights. Corporate constitutional rights is so often what is making it impossible for us to legally move forward in actually addressing the root of the problem. And so help us get this amendment passed. Use your time, but also please donate your resources. I want to congratulate Carolyn Wolf from Twitter, Wolf Prowler 1, and Daryl Johnson from Facebook. You're the ones who win our t-shirts tonight, so thank you so much for helping us spread the word. Send us a direct message and let us know your address and the size that you would like, and we will put that in the mail for you. Well, we will send off the order for it to be put in the mail for you this week. And please sign the Move to Amend petition if you are not already on our list. movetoamend.org/motion is how you can get on that, and then share it with all your friends. Thanks for joining me tonight. We always close with a hell yeah moment. So we decided tonight that we would splice together a few different videos of statues, racist statues coming down. Obviously, this is not the be-all, end-all bringing down statues, but it is remarkable that we have seen so much progress in this country, and the tearing down and the desire to make clear that this is not what we want our country to be. This is what our country has been, but this is not what we need to be and who we need to be. And so let's watch this, let's keep going, and let's make sure that we don't just tear down the symbolic examples of white supremacy and entrenched, power by the elites, but let's pull down the institutions as well. And I also want to give a shout out to there we go, Santa Fe, my hometown, that is finally going to take down the it's not really a statue, it's actually an obelisk, but commemorating Conquistador Oñate, who was a ruthless, horrible person who murdered the Pueblo people of this community. And it's been an ongoing fight. And finally, we have turned the corner as a result of the uprisings for Black and people of color's lives. And that statue is going to come down. So let's watch this. I leave you with this hell yeah moment, and I hope you will join me next month on the last Wednesday, which I don't have what that date is, but the last Wednesday of July, we'll be back here again. Thanks so much for all your support for Move to Amend. Thanks, Alfonso, for engineering, as always. And thank you, Keon, for joining me tonight. Stay safe, everyone, and take care.
All right, Katie, thank you. Breaking overnight, the statue of Christopher Columbus beheaded in Boston as monuments across the country come under renewed fire from activists.
Corporations are not people too. Money is not speech. Men, in fact, it's the root of all right. Now we have the right to be free. Corporations are not people too. Money is not speech. Men, in fact, it's the root of all right. Now stand up and defend your democracy.
Have you recently read the Constitution? There seems to be some type of confusion. I thought it said the people were the institution and not the corporations that simply want to use them. The truth is currently a fusion of corporate loot and our government that is outright abusive. People need change. The state, it refuses. They're saying we're mistaken. Well, show us where the proof is. They control the media, movies, and the music and determine where supplies of the water and food live. We need a strategy. Here is a solution. Build a movement.
Corporations are not people too. Money is not speech. Men, in fact, it's the root of all right. Now we have the right to be free. Corporations are not people too. Money is not speech. Men, in fact, it's the root of all right. Now stand up and defend your democracy.
Have you recently read the Constitution? There seems to be some type of confusion. I thought it said the people were the institution and not the corporations that simply want to use them. The truth is currently a fusion of corporate loot and our government that is outright abusive. People need change. The state, it refuses. They're saying we're mistaken. Well, show us where the proof is. They control the media, movies, and the music and determine where supplies of the water and food live. We need a strategy. Here is a solution. Build a movement to give our rulers improvements.